Have you ever been wanting to watch something on TV? So you open up Netflix looking for something entertaining, spend like 15 minutes scrolling through the options just to end up with nothing interesting to watch. In the last 20 years, streaming services like Netflix, Prime, and Disney Plus have completely changed TV, taking us from cable and DVDs to being able to watch whatever we want, whenever we want it, all for a low monthly fee. But even though that seems like it should be way better, the data doesn't necessarily back that up. So I've been wondering, is streaming actually better? In this video, we take a look at why people are tired of streaming services, I figure out how much I'm spending every single month, and show you how you can save money while still getting good value. I feel like every year I pay more for streaming services and get a worse experience. But my challenge is that I don't know if I'm just being dramatic or if these are real problems. Like, this has to be better than cable, right? So I want to start with pure facts and numbers. How much am I spending on streaming services anyway? If I'm being honest, I feel like I went a little overboard this year. I honestly don't know what streaming services I have and what I'm still paying for, which is kind of a problem. So we're gonna take a look. Dude, I went through everything. There is a lot of services here. Now, a lot of these are things I knew I have, like YouTube Premium, Spotify, I use that all the time, Amazon, Disney Plus, Netflix. But Crave, I got that for a free trial to watch the Harry Potter movies like 2 months ago. Stack TV was a free trial to watch The Paper. Now I'm paying for it. Obviously, these don't look that bad on paper, like $18.99, whatever. It's like 20 bucks a month. But I want to add them all up to see how much I'm paying in total, because I think that's going to be a bit of a different story. Here we go, $146.62 per month for streaming services. That is way more than I thought it was gonna be, and I have to say, that number's kind of a bit of a reality check. Times 12, oh my gosh. Man, do I really even need all of these? I think I gotta do some canceling, I'll put it that way. Okay, so I definitely am paying more, or at least more than I thought, which made me think, if I wasn't crazy about that, maybe my friends would also feel the same about streaming services. They'd feel the frustrations that I had. So I decided to head over to Instagram and ask my friends what they thought. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you want to be part of my high quality research, follow me on Instagram. Anyways, I put a poll on my story asking how many streaming services people were paying for, and whether they felt like the subscriptions they had were worth the money. After a day, I took a look at the responses, and it looks like people pay for around 3 to 4 services each. Way less than me, apparently. And around 2/3 of the people who responded said that they weren't worth the money. Thought that was interesting, because it means that things are changing and we're starting to get frustrated. But even with all of that in mind, we still haven't exactly figured out why these streaming services are so bad. So let's start there. A few weeks ago, I was trying to watch the World Series with my girlfriend as a very diehard Jays fan. Look, I even have the hat to prove it, all right? There you go. Anyways, to watch baseball games in Canada, you have to subscribe to a service called Sportsnet, which costs $29.99 a month. So I paid that. And once I was in, I was kind of surprised by the fact that you still have to watch ads even though you're a subscriber, you're a member. So you can imagine my frustration when I try to watch a game and it's completely unwatchable because it keeps freezing up and crashing. Listen, I understand that millions of people were watching, but how on earth is it more reliable for me to watch this very reliable and legitimate stream instead of the service that I'm paying for? I know I'm not the only one with experiences like this. If you do one Google search, you'll see tons of other people talking about situations exactly like this. So what I did is I went through a bunch of studies that analyzed why people were canceling streaming services. And there was a ton of different reasons. But I think we can simplify this by a lot. Before you pay for a streaming service, you really only need it to have 3 things: good content and a good experience at a good price. Now, the fact is, when you're signing up for a streaming service, a lot of it's determined by the content and the price, not as much by the experience. But in order to keep you paying your monthly subscription, you really do need to have all three. And if we come back to the frustrations that I was talking about, nearly every single one of them fits into one of these three categories. Like, for example, preventing people from sharing their passwords. That's an experience thing. Or having too much low quality content. That's a content problem. Running ads for paid members is a price problem. And shows jumping from platform to platform is, again, a content problem. I think you get the idea of where this is going. Let me fill in a few more of these. Once you start to have more complaints and the content, the experience, the price isn't good anymore, you're gonna cancel. Which is where things get messy, because these streaming services know about the problems that exist, especially when they make changes, but they don't want you to cancel. So they try to balance out these problems to make your experience just good enough that you don't stop paying. There is more to this, but we'll come back later. Knowing that, the answers from my friends started to make sense. They're not satisfied. They don't feel like these are worth the money, but it's still just easier to keep paying than it is to cancel. Okay, but knowing that, I actually have more questions. Like, how did we get here in the first place? And what's the future of streaming if everyone's frustrated? Speaking of the future, I have more videos just like this one coming out very soon. I've been locking into YouTube for the last few months of the year, so if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. I remember back when I was a kid, we were subscribed to the old Netflix. The one where you got DVDs in the mail, you had to watch them before the deadline and send them back in exchange for new DVDs. It was completely different from what we have now, but at the time it was so cool. You could watch anything you wanted. It just took a few days to get there. That was literally more convenient than waiting for something to come on cable or going to buy a movie. But Netflix knew that they could take it even farther and solve even more problems, and that's when streaming took over. I want to take a closer look at that shift from cable and DVDs to streaming, because I think somewhere in that mess is the reason why people are starting to get frustrated. It really comes down to this: the life cycle of a product. Every product, whether it's cable TV or Uber or the iPhone, all of it follows this life cycle. First, you have the research phase. This is where you're building something brand new, and no one really cares yet because it's still too much of a jump. But then you have the growth phase, where people catch on and start to pay attention. Then maturity, when you're at the top of the game, and decline, when something else inevitably takes over. For something to hit that super important growth phase, it has to solve problems and make our lives easier. Before streaming, there was no personalization of your content. You could only watch whatever was on TV at the time it came on, or you could buy the box set, the entire season of a show for around 40 to 80 bucks, depending on the show. And when it came to movies, each DVD cost around $15 to $20. Again, streaming services solved a lot of problems here. You could watch whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, for one flat rate. You didn't have to spend a ton of money building out your library. That's how they hit the growth phase and started to dominate. Everything is so much easier to access. But a few years ago, streaming hit a tipping point and overtook cable, taking it from that growth phase to maturity. And that's where things started to change. I mean, think about it. Stranger Things Season 5 is about to come out, and it's been 3 years since the last season. In the era of cable TV, that would have been completely unheard of. But with that big shift, with the step into the maturity phase, the problems with streaming services have also become more obvious now that they're so big. So yeah, these frustrations make sense. It comes with being in the maturity phase. But even with that, streaming is still the best, or really the only option to watch TV, which is partially why people are getting frustrated. But with all that in mind, I did find another side to these frustrations, something I didn't expect. I want to show you something. I saw this clip a few months ago and thought it was kinda hilarious. I mean, come on, LeBron, an active player in the NBA, is watching illegal streams of other games? That's hilarious. Now, I always thought that piracy happened because people were cheap and they didn't want to spend money, but obviously, looking at that clip of LeBron, that's not the whole case. So I took a look and found a study researching why people download or watch content illegally. There's the usual suspects. Prices are too high, they can't afford it, but honestly, these are the minority. The truth is, half of the people surveyed said that they pirated content because it was too hard to access it legally. Even people in the industry know this.
There's misconceptions in the industry about what piracy is, right? There's assumption that what is piracy? Piracy is about people who want to steal stuff from you. From our point of view, what we saw more and more is that piracy is the result of bad service on the part of game companies.
If we look back to this chart, it's pretty clear why piracy is on the rise. Because in the same time it takes you to search where to watch this movie, you can now also search free stream for this movie. And in one click, you're set. You don't have to pay for a service, set up your account, yada, yada, yada. I mean, remember what I told you about the baseball game? Even though I was paying for the service and watching the ads that they were showing me, I ended up having to do this later on anyways. The point is, now that Netflix and other streamers are in the maturity phase, now that they dominate, they've started throwing their weight around. And as a result, some people's frustrations have boiled over, causing them to download content or stream content illegally. I want to take a step back here. We looked at how much I was spending on streaming services. We found out why people are frustrated with streaming, and we also looked at what's happening as a result. So the only question left really is, what can you do to make streaming more enjoyable? Because if these are the only options, there has to be a better pathway than illegal streams, right? I wanted to find some real golden nuggets here, so I got some advice from my old pal Google and actually found 3 pretty useful tips. First things first, cancel streaming services you don't use. Listen, I know this sounds obvious, but on my list, there's at least 4 services that I don't actively use, so there's no reason for me to keep paying for them. I think a lot of the time what happens is we get this idea that it's gonna be easier to just keep paying because it's only 10 or 20 bucks a month, right? But then you don't end up using the service for months or years, or you watch like one thing and you waste hundreds of dollars. So go through your services, cancel the ones you don't need, and honestly, if you do that, maybe when you come back, you'll even get a free trial for the thing you do want to watch. Second, get rid of streaming services you don't even know about. I promise this isn't sponsored, but there are tools out there like Rocket Money that go through your bank statements and find subscriptions that you don't want, so you can cancel them. Now, for me, I had to go through my bank statements to see all of the services that I have, and it reminded me of one that I didn't even remember that I had. So either go through your bank statements or use a tool like Rocket Money, but cancel the ones you don't even remember you paid for. And third, this one's really fun. You can pretend to cancel to get a discount. They're called retention offers. Basically, if you're a paying customer and you've been paying for a while and you go to cancel, the company will often offer you a discount or some sort of way to keep you around for cheaper. And you can do this over and over again with a lot of different services to save money. Let me show you this in action. All right, it's Ben from the future here. I've opened up a few of my subscription services to see if we can get a retention offer by trying to cancel the service. Let's take a look. First things first, let's try Stack TV here. All right, so literally the first one I tried, and it's giving me an offer of 50% off for the next 3 months. I have a hunch that if I were to try and cancel after the 3 months, it would give that to me again, allowing me to save money. But in this case, I actually just don't have anything to watch on here, so I'm gonna completely cancel it. Now, when it comes to Disney Plus, I was actually gonna try this because I've heard that Disney Plus is usually pretty good about giving retention offers, but I actually have a bundle through my phone provider that helps me to save money. Which leads me to another recommendation I completely forgot about, that you can actually get bundles through different companies of multiple streaming services, and it'll usually save you quite a bit on each one. For example, the one I got, I was paying 10 bucks a month for the first 6 months for Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. Not too shabby. Now it's about 40 bucks a month, but still cheaper overall. All right, so I don't have any way to back this up, but I was on my phone. I thought I was screen recording. It didn't work. I also just went to go cancel Apple TV, and it gave me an offer of half off for the next 3 months if I wanted to renew. So there's actually another one, by the way, that I forgot to mention, which is using a VPN. When I went to the States last year, I wanted to watch The Office, but in the US, The Office is only on Peacock. Here in Canada, we stream it on Netflix. Now, the problem was that Peacock's not available for me to download because I'm not American. So the only way I could watch The Office was by setting a VPN VPN to Canada. So if you have a VPN, what you can do is set it to other countries and see if you can get the content through the VPN through streaming services you already have. Because every country has different content on different services, and that might save you some money. The bottom line here though, even if streaming is frustrating, there are ways you can take back control. And hopefully one of those works for you. Throughout this video, I realized that streaming is better than I give it credit for, and that it is easier than having cable, but there's still lots of room for improvement. Like I mentioned earlier, the biggest companies in the world find solutions to life's problems, making our lives easier. But at the same time, once these companies get big enough, they know that the alternative, the problem, it's not something we want to go back to, so we're usually really patient and forgiving when things disappear. It's a great way for them to make more money. So yeah, people are getting more frustrated with streaming services, but they still pay because it's really the only way to get content nowadays. At the end of the day though, our dollars speak louder than our voices. Last year, people spent 23% less on average on streaming than the year before, because these changes made a negative enough impact that we actually canceled. So remember, just because you feel like you're one person and you might not have that much of an impact, at scale, if we all cancel if we're not happy, it's gonna leave a dent. And remember, one day I'm sure another company is going to swoop in and make our lives even easier. So in the meantime, while we wait, I have a question for you. What do you think of streaming services? And how's your relationship with them going to change? I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a story about your experiences. So let me know down below in the comments. And hey, thanks for watching. I put a ton of time and research into this video. You guys have been showing so much support on the content lately, and I'm really, really grateful. To be honest, this year I've kind of been a little bit lost trying to figure out what content to make, and I feel really confident in what I want to do going forward. So if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe and like this video and turn on notifications. I really appreciate it if you do. And check out the next video right here where I tell you about why Hollywood movies are failing.